Good morning and afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for a webinar to discuss compliance data and the pharma industry. I am so excited to be here with a couple of our, either people who have worked with us in the past or our partners, and I'll go ahead and introduce them really quickly. And my name is Anne Merlowski. I lead the marketing team here at Claravine, and I love getting to talk to other marketers about how they're using our tool to manage their data and how it impacts their business. We have Tom, who is here joining us with ForgeDC. He is one of our partners, and Anya, who is with BeOne. So I am so excited that we are going to be having this conversation this morning. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning, Anne.
All right, so for those who are watching us, we do have some questions, but if you have any questions you would like to answer or ask and have our panelists answer, please do drop them in the comments so that we can go ahead and discuss those at the end. So let's go ahead and get started with a little warm-up question of what is a myth about pharma data or compliance that you wish would retire forever?
I can take it on first if you don't mind, Tom. I think the myth is that compliance slows things down. We kind of hear it over and over and over again. And I think that's not entirely true. I think our disconnected systems and teams who are not working together slow things down probably even more, including some of the manual processes. So I think if you take that along for the ride, things can get done a lot faster.
I agree. I think
Completely
that
agree.
makes a lot of sense in that, it sounds like it's going to be something that's going to require legal approval and all these other people have to look at it. But once you have that standard, it empowers your teams to work a little bit more efficiently.
I think mine was going to be that pharma consider themselves as a data poor industry in the commercial space, which again is definitely something that I think is not true. Appreciate that there's sometimes challenges in getting granular data for prescriptions in certain markets. But if you look outside that, I think applying standards and applying an enterprise governance model to understand your data and to maintain it at a high quality. A lot of companies recognize that actually they're in a really, really good position when it comes to the data that they own and the data that they have.
I love that. I think that makes a lot of sense that pharma, because of the compliance associated, we might think that we can't use that data, but there's actually so much that you can do that's going to empower your decision making and your ability to do much more comprehensive marketing. So let's talk a little bit about, the process you go through for creating data standards for your teams. When you first started tackling fragmentation of data, what was the real barrier? Was it the technology piece? Is it the ownership internally, or is it the culture of data?
Anya, after you.
Sure, absolutely. I probably would say that the biggest challenge was tackling the fragmented teams and addressing and trying to standardize everything. Every brand, every agency, every media vendor we're working with have done things their own way because of the lack of the standardization. And so trying to bring everyone on board, trying to include everyone, listen to everyone's opinions, but do what's right for the business. That just takes a lot of time and a lot of patience.
It's that change management that it's easy to turn a tool on, but to get people to actually do it, sometimes is the more complicated part and get everybody march in the same direction.
Yeah, I think I'll piggyback on that as well, Anya, and definitely say it would be ownership for me. Often we work with clients to build enterprise taxonomies to try and standardize and model their data, which could then be kind of utilized by the business and by AI. But often what we find is that companies struggle even to define their product lists, let alone the different characteristics of their content, and further downstream how to even tag and characterize their customers. And often it's actually many different teams and legacy systems that might own this data to begin with. And the conversation always comes to who owns it today versus who owned it 10 years ago, and should that change, which I think is one of the biggest barriers that I've seen.
Well, and then how, when you're thinking about these teams, and we've talked a lot about, what is the importance of a data center of excellence, and that's something we discuss here at Claravine. How do you build that trust across the teams and really encourage folks to collaborate more efficiently and faster?
So maybe I can go first on that one, Anya.
Go
Or
ahead. No, go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's the ownership question again. I think at the end of the day, we work a lot primarily with marketing and commercialization teams. And when they start to take ownership of these different data standards across the business, and they can purposefully design them in a way that unlocks business value for them, you start to see a lot more, let's say, active and or proactive governance and design decisions being made. Whereas before, you may have, let's say, a product list. I'll go back to that example that might be governed and owned by the finance organization, but perhaps that product list doesn't reflect how marketing budget is allocated necessarily. And so when you start to bring clear ownership, that ownership then propagates, much more active investment in maintaining that data, which then ultimately leads to trust. But I think it's first understanding what that data is being used for and who it's actually trying to benefit in the organization. It's almost like I don't trust the data that my neighbor is handling a little bit, which, is a difficult one. So, yeah.
I kind of agree. I think the first thing I think about it is the change management aspect we talked about in ways of working. I used to compile my own Excel documents, and so did probably everyone else. And so you trust your own Excel document or your data, but you don't trust anyone else's because there's no standards, there's no centralized location to keep it all, and there's not a common language that we all speak. So I think that was the biggest kind of challenge, is getting everyone on board to speak the same language and use the centralized tools so that people don't have to redo and rely on their own data sets and extracts.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's really that unification is where we can really make progress, where we're starting to take, the things that may have been more heavy lifting out of the process. And on that note, what is one of the things that you guys are doing to really reduce the manual review process in all of your data? And how are you utilizing automation to do that today?
Tom, you go first.
Well, I guess the short answer is AI. But I guess the longer answer is helping our clients to design rule sets and instructions that they can themselves take ownership of, that actually informs the reviews or the generation of metadata by AI, so that it moves away from being a black box to something that you can actually manipulate, optimize, change. But I think now versus even 3 or 4 years ago, the AI models that are available have massively improved and have gotten really, really accurate at both generating but also identifying errors and correcting those errors in an automated fashion. So I think that's super exciting because I think it can take a lot of the objections away from businesses that go, okay, I'd love to have great data, but it's so much manual effort to generate it all and to manage it all and to govern it all. Whereas I think today it's not the case, and I think 6 months from now, even more, it's not going to be the case, to be honest.
I agree. I don't think we're quite as far as truthfully using AI yet, but I think we're setting up a lot of the foundational elements to help us, and automation and consolidation within tools and platforms is like one of the first steps. So definitely opportunity. to take it even further. But I think you have to have the foundational elements. You have to start slow and you have to get that right in order for your AI models to work. So that's, I guess, what we're working on.
And do you feel being in the space that you're in, that AI is harder to implement because of the compliance nature, or is there still a push? I think in the software space, there's been a push to find ways to use AI to be more efficient, to generate profitability. That's, we hear these themes time and time again. But what do you feel the message around AI and automation is in your world and what you're hearing from your leadership?
Anya, I'll let you go first.
I can take this on. I think everyone's desire is to push AI as far and make these processes as efficient as possible. I think in certain instances, we just need to be a little bit more realistic, maybe, and start again slow. I think what I personally don't agree with is probably pushing AI for the sake of pushing AI. I think AI needs to be there solving a specific problem. And I think spending a little bit of time focusing on defining what those problems are and the opportunities to optimize processes, tools, will enable you to find better cases for AI. And yeah, that's that, specifically in my space and content space, I think there's a lot of desire and a lot of opportunities. We do need to work with the compliance team to kind of educate and get them on board, though, every step of the way. And if that happens, and I think, have done a tremendous kind of work on our end, and they're a great partner, I think they're not going to slow things down.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And I think, I'm really excited to see as we all continue to innovate in this space, what we're able to, generate and how that's going to empower the people resources to be able to do more and more efficiently.
Yeah,
And
I think I can probably piggyback on what Anya said as well, just quickly. Apologies for cutting you off. And I think the compliance question, in my experience, is really dependent on the use case that you're trying to push AI forward for. I think there's a lot of foundational data foundational elements that can be AI produced that compliance maybe are more lenient towards because they're internal pieces of data being used by internal teams. And I completely agree with you, Anya, when you said that the foundations are critical to build AI tools on top of. So I think just by the nature of the work that we do, which is very much focused on data foundations, compliance hasn't really been so far a bottleneck for us. In fact, I think they've been kind of championing a lot of the work that we do in many ways. Having said that, the flip side of it is, using AI for more customer-facing use cases, which there is still, rightly so, a lot of hesitancy around. But I think that makes sense.
Well, and I think it's the balance of what is the kind of AI that you're using in a customer instance. Are you allowing an image generator to just self-generate advertising and, the people don't look quite right? Or are you using it to pick from a pick list and populate information that's already been pre-approved? And that I think is where we need to set almost the same kind of compliance guardrails around the utilization of AI as we are, making sure that we're always serving the right thing to the right audiences. Awesome. Well, pivoting a little bit to, once you have your compliance and you have your data standards and you're using automation, the next thing everyone's going to ask is, how are you going to see value out of it? So, what are the ROI metrics that really resonate with your leadership teams? And not, this is not like the theoretical, the dream that they ask for, but what are the ones that really matter that they consistently are asking for and that you're able to produce because you now are using a more consistent data methodology?
I can give it a shot, but I often think for somebody like me who's enabling the technology and setting up processes, right? Being able to report on speed to market or content reuse or content effectiveness, those things are great. But truthfully, for our senior management, they just want to get the readouts quickly. and as quickly as possible. So I think thinking about the teams who enable the readouts, it is extremely, extremely critical for them to have the right data organized in the right way so that they're able to achieve and report, for example, on what is happening during the conferences or what is happening in like an pretty much instantaneously, as opposed to wait till all these data sources get aggregated, then try to match the sources from different agencies, and it's just historically it's just been taken too long. It's not possible, but it just takes too long, and our C-suite just wants that information faster. And the faster that we can produce that information, the more proactive we can be. I think that's the true value that they're getting out of it.
Absolutely. Taking out the, hey, it's going to take me 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks to get you the answers that you need is so powerful and impactful that you can immediately pull reporting and start to apply that to your next activity. Tom, did you want to answer that same question?
Yeah, sorry. So the question was, how do we actually realize ROI or report on ROI from automation and standardization? So I think typically we see maybe 3 or 4 different areas where clients are often looking for business outcomes and an ROI for investing in this space. One would actually be around, because we work very much in the marketing commercialization space, around content discoverability and reuse, which seems a little bit left field, but actually often what we find with clients through standardizing data and through maintaining a consistent set of metadata around content, you're actually enabling both marketeers, sales reps, medical science liaisons to search and filter and discover content, or potentially reuse existing content for campaigns, which actually in the pharma space, content's very expensive. You only create so much content per year. It takes a long time to create content. So often that's a big driver or a big lever that they're looking for standardized data to unlock. I'd say a second one, which I think Anya kind of alluded to, is the speed to market when it comes to reporting and cross-channel analytics. Having that kind of standardized data set that you can rely on being both accurate and comprehensive in regard to all of the metadata that you're generating can enable you to get those reports created and get to those insights much faster than a world where you're constantly stitching and constantly double checking, and often even not even that confident when it comes down to it that you haven't maybe missed something or duplicated something. So I think those are the 2 big ones I'd call out. Otherwise, I'll be talking for like 10 minutes. So I'll leave my answer there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tom. And I do want to introduce our final panelist, Mary Beth, who is joining us from Novartis. And I apologize, Mary Beth, as all things in technology are, they will fail when given the opportunity.
No worries. My apologies. Apparently Zoom is blocked now. So
You never know. You never know, the things that worked yesterday sometimes.
exactly. I was on a Zoom meeting on Monday. I'm like, and then a new message popped up today. So my apologies.
Well, we appreciate your persistence. Well, we were just talking through ROI metrics and automation, and you can just join us. I think I'll start asking some questions. You can join us.
Perfect.
Does that sound great?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, my first question is specifically for Anya, and it's how do you approach scaling content governance without slowing speed to market down? Kind of what Tom was just talking about. Can you expand on how you guys are doing that in real life?
Yeah, I think the key for us, which felt a little frustrating at first, but the key for us was to start slow. So we did start with a single brand, one indication, one campaign, when we were rolling out Claravine tool specifically. And I remember a lot of the conversations were around such basic things, and we had to spend a lot of time getting all of the agencies, brand teams, all the internal and external stakeholders on board, even on things like what is the campaign? Let's start even there. I mean, it sounds trivial, but tagging the campaign is such a critical aspect to all of this, but defining the campaign, I think, is even more critical. So starting slow, getting everyone on board, hearing and taking the input, because honestly, I think at the very beginning, everyone's like, why are you like going around and asking, for inputs from so many different stakeholders? But honestly, it was extremely, extremely valid and very critical. And some of that addressed compliance issues that I never thought of at the beginning. So I think taking that time, making people part of the process, starting slow. Once we landed the campaign, we tackled one channel at the time, made sure that we got, again, people on board comfortable using the technology. And I think only then you can start scaling and thinking about, other brands, other channels, and hopefully other markets.
Absolutely. And I think that collaboration is sometimes the most important thing we can all do as a team, that it's not just about, are we using a unified tool? Are we using a unified data structure? But are we all in agreement that this is the direction we're supposed to be going in? And that, I think, makes, laddering into Maribeth, what you do, looking at the opposite end after the content and campaign is created, being able to analyze it. This question's for you. How do you connect the data out of your content and campaigns with performance analytics that really create that actionable feedback that you can then take back to your content teams and say, hey, this is what we need to do in the future to improve?
Yeah, so it starts with a really solid measurement framework. So we make sure that we align what our KPIs, our success metrics are, any specific goals or guardrail metrics. And then step one is the most critical, is our Claravine, right? So making sure that we have our tagging and taxonomy in place, that we're aligning all of our campaign codes, any of those additional elements, parameters, and that data goes all the way through Google Analytics, through our Google BigQuery, into our data lakes, and then into the ends visualization tool where we're making those business decisions. So we're incorporating anywhere from our paid media campaigns to modular content.
That's amazing. And I think back over to Anya, what part of your ecosystem has been the hardest for you to standardize, and thinking about, how Mary Beth's talking about utilizing across all of the different channels? How does that apply back to when you're actually creating content, what you guys need to focus on?
Yeah, I think it's less about, I guess, the content creation. I think, again, talking about the rollout of the Claravine tool, which I think we're all here in agreement that it's a key component of overall enablement of the content management, is for us personally, it was getting the media agencies kind of looking at different ways of operating, changing their ways of working, to accommodate kind of the changes that we were requesting. So because they're probably a central point between the AORs, between the production agencies, between the brands, consolidating all that information and kind of like taking them through a process and having them kind of adapt and change their ways of working. And they have their set ways of working was a little bit of a challenge. It just took a little bit longer, but I think we are really, really in a good spot right now.
And that's really speaks to that creating a single source of truth, that it's not just an internal problem, it also applies to the external individuals and agencies and teams that you work with. So, Maribeth, what does that single source of truth mean for you guys in your role?
So for us, it's about having clean, clear, scalable data. We have dozens of brands and nearly 100 websites. And what that means is we have to have the same consistent implementation, the tagging taxonomy consistent, reliable throughout step one with Claravine, all the way to where it's visualized and we're telling the story and doing those optimization rooms.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And Tom, you've seen this happen across multiple organizations. And so what is it that you really see when alignment either fails or succeeds in bringing all of the right teams together to create a appropriate data standards and technology for their business?
I guess I'll start from the failure side. I think it fails when maybe the end consumer of the data goes, I don't trust this data, or I don't trust these reports. And then I suppose there's kind of an operational layer that don't really have the authority, the investment, or the backing to go and speak to all the teams that Anya was mentioning, run the change management. And often what happens is people that are maybe consuming the data after it's come through are trying to stitch things together or put together something that's like papering over the cracks. And those things are just very difficult to maintain over time. And they might work for one brand, but scaling that's going to be super difficult. And I think when it succeeds, there's a burning platform that leadership recognize. Maybe there was a compliance issue, maybe a launch went really badly, something happens in the business, or there's a leader that recognizes the importance of this. And it comes from top down to go, hey, let's get everyone together holding hands on this topic, and let's spend real time and real money trying to clean this up from the ground up. And I think that's the only time really, again, saying what Anya said already, but that collaboration is so key that at the end of the day, if you don't have that, and you don't have the leadership voice and time and investment, then it's a very difficult thing to do. It sounds simple, but actually it's quite a complex endeavor, let's say.
Absolutely. It's that proving things out to your leadership opens the doors for being able to do more and be more intentional. I think in our last couple of minutes, I wanted to see if we have any questions from the audience, and we do have one, and it is, what is the most underrated metric for proving ROI in pharma? So the one that, might be you might dismiss, but it actually tells a real story for you.
Is that for me?
For anybody can answer that.
So I would say that we use engagement rate, which is different from conversion rate, right? Because we're looking at not specific actions or high value actions, but an overall synopsis of what the visitor is doing, what they're interacting with, how long they're spending on time, and then looking at that versus those high value actions. So that's really helpful in understanding that true ROI.
I think what's important to me specifically is the discoverability or findability of that content. I think, we talk about like the execution of marketing campaigns, but we create so much content, and to be able to find it in an efficient way and see if there are opportunities to use it and reuse it and then measure it, like that's the key.
Absolutely, are they engaging? Can you find it? Can you utilize it for the future? And then Tom, what do you see in your world? What do you see you're hearing from your clients?
I think I guess the most underrated is actually getting real budget and spend data from all of your teams and including that in your data models and taxonomy systems, because that doesn't happen very often. And actually, there's a lot of granular insights that can help you optimize in-house with that data. So it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but honestly, we don't see that much. So even the basics could really propel a lot of the value that you can get.
Well, and I think all three of those metrics really tie together to give you that big picture of what we're all trying to achieve is it's not just about creation, it's not just about engagement, it's about are we driving value for our businesses? And so you really do need all three to create that full picture. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you guys taking the time, and I hope everyone watching enjoyed hearing from these folks as much as I did. Appreciate your time today, and we will be shooting out a recording of this call later. So if you have other folks on your team that would be interested, please do share.